we were going to go digress into this rabbit hole here because this is there's really no proof tying all of this together except logic and careful thought, right? So there have been a number of food shortages that we've talked about. I mean, chicken was shorted. We have wheat being affected because of the situation in Russia and Ukraine, right? And it's getting worse, and there's high inflation, and people were having trouble with groceries anyway. But there's also been random food processing plants that have been getting burned, right? And I want to go over some of that. You guys have talked about it. A few people have talked about it, but it's kind of hard to just even, it's weird because there's just not a lot of information out there on this. It's just like you mention it, but the timing is extremely suspect. And the reason it's suspect is because this isn't the first time we've had incidences like the pandemic. We've had false flags. We have this conflict going on. We see behind the manipulations of the predator class, right? And they've lied about things. You could mention Big Pharma, you could mention Monsanto, you could mention a plethora of other things. So there was multiple large food processing and distribution plants in the US have recently exploded or burned down. So Matt Agorist wrote this, and he posted this on April 21st. And he said, as food certainty lingers on the horizon thanks to US sanctions and government decimation of the economy during the past 2 years, there's another factor contributing to the problem. Since the beginning of the year, there have been several very large food processing facilities that have
exploded or burned to the ground across the USA.
Yep. Okay. There we go. And so Newsweek had this article, this like thread, right? Starting with this article put out by this person. And I thought it was an interesting thread. But they had this one article in particular where they talk about the 7 injured in the explosion as the fire engulfs the food plant and the smoke was visible for miles. So they talked about that one. And I want to go to the thread, Oz, but I'm not seeing it in the folder. Okay, so let me, it's tiny. Yeah,
oh, somebody
should
put a
be
glass on, right.
in the folder. I can't see it from there. Can you add it to the notes real quick so I can click on it? That's far. All right, so he started off with that, right? And then he talked about you as you guys can see the pictures from all of the multiple ones, and he also talked about another one in Oregon, which was a fire that brought down a meat processing plant in Conway, New Hampshire. And it burned for 16 hours. And it was a beef and pork facility, and it was completely destroyed. And then that same week, there was one in Salinas, California, which was the Taylor Farms processing facility. And it burned for over 17 hours. And it's a major agricultural company that processes and delivers many of the salad kits in grocery stores. And they're still investigating that one. And that one was on Keon News 546. And I think the next one he talked about was a fire weeks before that in Walmart. And that was in Plainfield, Indiana, where over 1,000 employees shipped food and other supplies all over the region. It destroyed 1 million square feet of the operation. He also talked about one in southern Texas. He talked about one that one in particular grew onions, melons, green cabbage, and kale, greens, cabbage, and kale. And then he talked about another one in Oregon. So there have been lots of them. Particularly, there was one in Maricopa where we were for the elections, Pasta. Mm-hmm. And it was such a big fire that it wiped out the Maricopa Food Pantry, which distributes food to unhoused people. And more than 50,000 pounds of food were destroyed in a blaze that lasted 24 hours. And you guys can see this fire right there by the tweet by Benjamin Badcock. And at the end in this thread, they have like, and I have the picture better so you guys can see it later, but just so many headlines of so many things burning, right? And in slide 18, Oz, they go a little bit deeper into it, of the Maricopa food pantry. They have, more pictures there on slide 18. And I don't know, Pasta, to me, this is a little bit too much like, there's too much of a coincidence, right? Because
Yeah, I was about to
talking
say.
about factories and processing plants and areas, farmland, where you're talking about food. And you're talking about areas that are just like where food distribution happens, California, the Midwest. And most of the time when these fires like this happen, they're arson. That's like in general, that's like the overall consensus that when fires like this start, it's usually arson, right?
Mhm.
And it's, as you go down, Oz, if you go down to 20, there's just so many of them. There's so many of them, like the one we just talked about in Texas, which is Rio's Fresh Onion Warehouse that was damaged. And this was on April 1st. And so there's a lot of that, right? That's one thing. But then a plane crashed into an Idaho potato and food processing plant.
Yeah, which is going over the line. You don't fuck with potatoes, fam. You don't.
Fam, you don't. I love potatoes. And yeah. And potatoes are I mean,
potato salad.
Potato everything, fam.
Potatoes
I love
all
potatoes.
rotten.
They have like so many potatoes, different potatoes in Peru. So it's the potatoes,
Loaded baked potato.
But fam, I want to hear your thoughts on what you think.
The thing is that, okay, here's the thing we have to say. If we're like, look, when you say it's just too coincidental that these are all happening at the same time, I think that, raises the question, okay, if we're going to kind of look at this objectively or subjectively, whatever the way you want to look at it.
Well, it's objectively, right?
It's objectively. I mean, well, some people were looking at it subjectively, right? But that's their asshole, whatever. So number one, we have to ask two questions. Well, then who is doing this? And number two, why are they doing it? That is the two questions. So the fact that you said is coincidental, who would you say who's doing it, fam? And why are they doing it? You know what I'm saying? And I'm very interested to hear what the audience has to say is number one, if in fact this is not just by accident, who's burning all these food distribution facilities and why are they doing it? That's
right. That is $1 million question. And it would appear that if I am some sort of trying to get a narrative across, right? If I'm some sort of powerful psychopathic figure and I'm trying to get a narrative across, that I would want to have people really see that these food shortages are happening and it's a result of a country and another country. It's a result of Putin. Yeah. It's a result of this other country that's ruining our economy because, they're trying to invade another poor, helpless country. And so, oh my God, we're having food shortages. We're having high gas prices. I mean, the reason I say this is because they blame the high gas prices on Putin. They literally indoctrinated the TikTok kids about it, saying, Putin is doing this, but hey, at least you live in a country where we can oppose him. So they were doing that already. So it doesn't surprise me when the media already blames Russia for everything.
I'm surprised they haven't blamed Russia for this yet. Like the Democrat, like Kamala Harris is going to come out and saying Putin's burning down our food supply.
They can't say that because that's ridiculous. But they can say that food shortages are due to Putin and Russia. So they can say that. And so when this happens, they can just say, oh, it's unfortunately on top of fires and stuff. Yeah. We already have food shortages. So look at what they're doing. That's one scenario, right? I think is logical to a degree, but it's hard to go off based on that if you're looking like at a direct connection as to who did it and the different areas. Obviously, it's more than one person. It's not, that's the thing. You have different areas all that in a relatively, recent timeline. Even before the conflict started, though. Even before the conflict started.
Okay. So let's talk about this for 1 second too, as well, because we've talked about the decisions that are being made when it comes to our foreign policy and our economic policies. It almost seems that we've said this before. This seems like the controlled demolition of the United States empire. A lot of us who understand at least the basic of economics understand that our dollar is pretty much a Ponzi scheme right now, that the market has been overbought and oversold over 3.5 times, and it's going to come crashing down like a house of cards. So if this is the controlled demolition of the United States empire, you're going to make sure that you not only are going to crash the economics of the United States, but you're going to make sure you can crash the food supplies. Like I said, at the end of the day, if they in fact want to do what Steve is mentioning all the time, which is move the capital, the economic capital of the world out of New York and Washington, D.C. and move it to Beijing and Moscow. And that is the truth, because I don't think at the end of the day, anybody who, who's holding the gun right now, who's kind of like pushed for all this craziness within our economic system, they're not going to pay back what they owe. They're just going to, bolt and get the hell on out of here. Well, what next? You want to turn this place into a Hunger Game? Cut off their food supplies. Do that. You know what I'm saying? How do you turn the people on each other more than anything? You make them fight over resources. Food would be something that they would fight, and almost like, you know what I'm saying? That would really be something crazy. Now, I know that's a little bit out there, but when you start seeing situations like where our food supplies are being burnt down over here, over there, and everything else, you hear this talk about bird flu, where they're culling all the birds, and a lot of people the fact about that, right? Which you're going to get to. You got to stop for a second and say, hey, wait, this looks like this is being done intentional. Why are they doing this? What better way to turn the people on each other is shorten the food supply and then forget about it. You know what I'm saying? Forget about it.
Yeah. I agree with everything, except they're trying to turn Russia and Beijing into, maybe Beijing, but definitely I don't think they want Russia to be the capital of the world. I think what's happening is naturally nations are fighting back naturally. And China lifted people out of poverty. Their economy is doing much better, whatever. That's happening, right? We discussed the China thing too the other day. But I don't think that this is some sort of conspiracy to make Russia, and I don't say conspiracy in a derogatory way. I say it in like a reality. It's not like Eva Bartlett says, right? It's not a reality theory to me that they would, a predator class would try to make Russia the capital of the Great Reset. It doesn't make sense to me. Logistically, it doesn't make sense to me. Geopolitically, especially with what's happening. So I don't agree with that. I think that, and this kind of will come up later with, I put your tweet up about what I said about Moscow. Mm-hmm. I don't view it. I feel like there's a difference between people who view things as like out of their control versus some of us who think like some of it is out of your control, but some of it is still in your control. And there are variations of that, where we go to, it's just a bunch of people and they're working together to kill us all. Yes, perhaps I agree 100% with that. But at the same time, I don't think that it's as simple as they're just all on board. There's definitely opposition to it. And I think there's opposition to it, not because it makes me feel better, but because logically, that's what I'm seeing before me. And that's what naturally happens in a logical sense. But I agree with that would be like, if somebody wanted to have a controlled demolition of the United States, then yes, this would happen. I think that they are more likely to try to co-opt China and Beijing in that aspect. But the thing is, they're more likely to do that with China, I think, than they are with like Russia and the global South. And the reason
I already believe they've done it. I don't believe this is about nation states. I believe this is about oligarchs doing that, and especially with Tom Luongo coming in saying the other day, and this is something that has really been said by a lot of people when it comes to the economics, that Putin is trying to make his monetary system tied to the gold. Therefore, it's a commodity-based monetary system. You know what I'm saying? And that can change a lot of things for the world economics, right? You know what I'm saying? You can't just continue to print fiat currency left and right. So what all I'm saying is that those oligarchs who have invested so heavily in the United States market will then turn around and invest heavily in the United States and the Russian market. That's all I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that they would necessarily want to move over there and set up shop. Just where their money making will be.
Well, yeah,
because at the end of the day, the United States does not make anything. It doesn't distribute anything. And that's going to come back and kick them in the ass because Russia has a lot of the things that the world uses, everything from oil, gas, fertilizer. So
do other countries, right? So
absolutely.
In the
but that's
global
the thing.
South,
they're aligning with the
exactly.
road
they're aligning with powerful powerful East. Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. Like, that's, I mean, but I see that as the shift, like the multipolar shift happening.
Absolutely.
I think that's happening regardless.
Yeah.
But whether certain countries, especially the big two, right, China and Russia, are going to fight back, you know, we've been discussing that a lot. And I think that we'll see. That remains to be seen. Because I think it is going to be about like certain oligarchs saying yes and certain people saying no, including perhaps some people in high levels of government. And I think that's what we're seeing here. So that happened. And I think there was another plane, Pasta, there was another plane. This plane, I think this is a different plane. This was on April 21st, and a plane crashed into the Georgia General Mills plant. So that happened as well. How many planes tend to crash into factories where food is made? Like, what is it? I should have looked up the statistic of that because it just seems a little bit weird to me. And then Benjamin Braddock who posted this. He said, a fire destroyed the headquarters of the largest independent food distributor in the U.S. and there's barely any coverage of it. I mean, I remember hearing about this from certain sources in independent media, but there was really no coverage. And at the same time, there's been the trial of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard going on, and all the people's attention has been on that, as well as Ukraine and Russia. And here is a press release. Fire destroys Azure Standard headquarters facility. No injuries, cause under investigation. Oregon, April 19th, 2020. The headquarters of Azure Standard, the USA's largest independent food distributor, were destroyed by fire overnight. There were no injuries. The cause of the fire is unknown and under investigation. The loss of the facility and the impact of the company-wide operations is being assessed and expected to be limited and temporary, and no other Azure Standard facilities were affected. The CEO issued a following statement. While the HQ facility is a total loss and a few product lines will be affected for the short term, other Azure Standard facilities are operating as close to normal as possible. Most importantly, we are grateful no one was injured. Blah, 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 blah. So the three products that were affected due to the destroyed automated liquid core facility were fruit packing facilities and carob products. And he said, because of this, we will experience out of stock status for Azure market oils, honey, and vinegars, and any Azure market product, as well as our carob products for the short term. We are not yet at fruit harvest, so no immediate impact will be experienced from the loss of fruit packing. So they talked about that. And so it's crazy. This did not make the news, and I find that really strange. And then in the next tweet, Wall Street Silver said, this is an odd coincidence. 18 U.S. food processing facilities burned down in the last 6 months. Azure Standards HQ burnt down yesterday. So you guys can see all the headlines again in that tweet. The next one on 26, you can see just a summary of all the headlines combined. So,
Fam. The thing about it is too, as well, is that it's weird because where are the food shortage where's the food shortage going to hit first, right? It's not going to happen in your big
Cities.
cities. It's not going to happen in your big cities. It's going to happen on the outer rims, I think. And these small ones where they'll be like, oh, no, we're sorry. Don't get me wrong. A lot of these smaller neighborhoods that can, that have a lot more local.
Well, because they ship everything, right, to the cities.
Exactly. That is true. So the supply chains will go down first. But the thing is that your mid to smaller size cities, those are the ones that are going to be hit first because they're going to give the privileged their food first. You know what I'm saying? So it's going to be very interesting to and I believe that Steve is going on Franco's show to talk about this. I think you should invite yourself to that show and talk about that because this is something that's going to be very, very serious.
Sam, I don't invite myself to things.
I'll invite you. I'll get you in. Bruno is my boy. I'll have a word with him. 18, fam, and nobody's talking about it. So when this hits us in the face, it's going to hit us harder in the face because we didn't talk about it. We didn't see it coming. And the mainstream is just going to, this looks like something that could end up with chaos erupting in the United States.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? This really looks like that. And it seems like we're inching or getting there closer to it. So it's very interesting to see how this thing plays out.
Yeah. I mean, and I've been talking about food shortages for a while because that not only did a lot of people start noticing the food shortages, like when you went out physically, but the inflation. There was a text message one of my friends got today that was sent to me where a family had been spending $500 for groceries, like I think a week or something, because it was a family, and then it went up to 1,000. Went up to 1,000 in a matter of like weeks, and that's not feasible for most people. Like that's a lot of money. That's like 100% increase on that. So it's insane. Oz, we have this video, right? We have the video from Jason Rantz, who went on Tucker Carlson. Oh no, we're going to show Tucker Carlson. He said, why are so many food processing plants and warehouses catching fire all of a sudden? And as I was sitting in the studio getting ready for the report, a plane crashed at General Mills food facility in Georgia. I discussed the issue on Tucker Carlson tonight. So this is on April 21st.
So just moments before we went to air tonight, a plane apparently...
Guys, every once in a while you have a rough day. Oz is having a rough day. Rookie mistakes and just things falling off the table for him.
Tractor trailers were reportedly on fire. You're seeing pictures from the scene right now. This is the second time in a week that something like this has happened. On April 14th, the plane crashed into the Gem State Processing in East Idaho. What's going on here? Well, the story gets weirder. Food processing plants all over the country seem to be catching fire. A couple of days ago, a fire destroyed the headquarters of Azure Standard, one of the largest organic food distributors in the country. At the end of last month, a fire severely damaged a fresh onion packing facility in South Texas. In Oregon, a potato chip processing plant just reported a boiler explosion that sent workers to the hospital. Here's a news report on that.
Eastern Oregon, where crews are battling a major fire at a potato chip processing plant. Air 12 flew over the scene at Shearer's Foods on Highway 207 in Hermiston. We're told the fire was caused by an explosion of a portable boiler there. 2 people were taken to the hospital.
So industrial accidents happen, of course, but this is a lot of industrial accidents at food processing facilities at the same time the president's warning us about food shortages. They're getting hit by planes and catching fire. What is going on here exactly? Jason Rantz hosts a radio show in Seattle and joins us to put it into perspective. Jason, good to see you.
Good to see you. Yeah, obviously, when something happens every so often, you obviously hope that there's no significant damage and certainly no one gets hurt, but you kind of write it off. It's not that big of a deal. Accidents happen. But when you've got well over a dozen food processing plants and warehouses getting destroyed or seriously damaged over just the last few weeks, at a time when the food supply is already vulnerable, it's obviously suspicious, and it could lead to serious food shortages. That's why some folks are now wondering, well, number one, what's going on? And you've got some people speculating that this might be an intentional way to disrupt the food supply. So
wait, may I ask you to pause there really quick? Can I just ask you, I just want to nail this down so our viewers understand. There have been confirmed over a dozen disabling accidents at food plants in the last month, over a dozen.
Absolutely. And we're talking about some really significant plants. The Taylor Farms facility in Salinas, California was completely destroyed by a fire last week. We've had 2 major potato processing plants in Belfast, Maine and Warden, Washington that were completely gutted, which is happening at a time where we already have a potato shortage globally. You were talking about the onion supply at that Rio Fresh, but it's not just produce plants. Last month, there was a fire that took out a Nestle food plant out in Jonesboro, Arkansas, and that's impacting frozen food brands like Hot Pockets or Stouffer's, which maybe you might buy if you can't get fresh food from a warehouse that just exploded. And that Shearer's food facility you just mentioned in the open, I mean, that's the only West Coast facility that they operate. So there is some significant concern, of course, that this is going to impact the supply chain. Now, to be clear, the timing is very suspicious. It's obviously concerning. Police are saying that these fires are due to faulty issues with equipment, so they're not saying that this was intentional. Either way, it's obviously going to have some significant, implications in us getting our food.
Yeah, I mean, an hour ago, a plane crashed into a General Mills facility. We'd already planned this segment. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. The onus is on people who think that's a conspiracy theory to explain what is going on. What are the odds of that? I have no idea. Jason Reyes, I appreciate your report tonight. We will follow up.
Sam, I'm going to get myself in hot water and say something really quick, and you can beat me up for it. Or
oh my God. You're going to say something positive about Tucker.
Mathematically impossible.
Oh, okay.
To hit
you're
goddamn
mathematically. I'm going to go for that one too.
And fires to happen in food distribution places like this.
No, it's, yeah. I don't know if I would say so mathematically because I haven't done the math, but I think it's highly statistically unlikely. It's just, if we're trying to be as objective as we can possibly be, I can't say that there's math. If somebody was like, what if they're working in overproduction? They're working. It's a possibility, but it's highly unlikely that possibility is true. I mean, you're talking about, Tucker said it himself. And by the way, I have to give him props for addressing this because nobody else is addressing this in the mainstream. So I will be the one to give Tucker props.
Are you praising Tucker?
I am praising Tucker.
I got to clip that up and send that to my mother. My mother would
giving him the hobby is giving Tucker praise.
Fiorella said something nice about Tucker. She's a good one. That's what you don't mess with Tucker. My mother, you don't mess with Tucker.
Listen, Tucker has a lot of commies on his side as of recently, a lot of, I'll just say leftists on his side as of recently. But I do want to point out this, Bam. While the media is saying that Russia is sinking, that the ruble is rubble and all this bullshit that we know isn't true because the ruble keeps going up. This person put out this story. They said, my friend from Russia met me yesterday. He has a UK resident visa. What he said was interesting. In Moscow now, no inflation, cheap power, no food, no medical shortages. So what if Mickey D's, McDonald's, and IKEA is closed? He says no one cares. The whole world is suffering, but they are not. I don't know how true that is, but they weren't really. I mean, what the inflation or the ruble did get affected, but it was a short time where it was really bad. And Russia is going to have repercussions because if everything happens in Europe and everything happens here, it's going to affect the economy everywhere. That's how things work, right?
Yes.
But
they hold the cards, right?
In terms of
right?
What?
They hold the cards. Just to explain that really quick, when you say it's going to affect everybody, that a lot of people depend on Russia's energy, gas, and resources.
Right. They do.
Sorry,
and they have the upper hand, right now. And they have also been prepping for this, just like I've talked about before, Nicaragua, preps for food sovereignty. So for having enough food for themselves without relying on outsiders bringing in the food, Russia has been prepping to do that as well. They've been prepping because of the way they've been treated by the West. So they're used to it. Whereas we're used to getting everything from everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not prepared for this. We're not prepared for it at all. And that's a huge difference when it comes to not just the economics, but the actual sustainability of a whole system. So I had to put this meme up, right? And it's got Bill Gates's face on it. food processing plants that have had accidents or burned down. And you can see the little map there, right? It's in a lot of the Midwest, a lot of the South, some in the Northeast too, a lot in California, because there's a lot of farming and agriculture there. And then there's Bill Gates's smile. I had to put that one in there, fam. That's for my tinfoil hat people.
Well, somebody put it up the other day, fam. So you people are thinking along this line. Somebody was like, "Oh my God!" Somebody thinks that Elon Musk buying up all the things is really corrupt and kind of suspicious. And then somebody else put like, "Yeah, it's kind of like, say if somebody like Bill Gates would go around and buy up all the farmland, they should be suspicious." And somebody's like, "Uh-oh, you're putting it together."
Yeah. So these billionaires buying up whatever it is, whether it's the entire free, town, the town square of the internet and these giant big tech social media companies, or whether it's the food you eat, whether it's the land you reside in, that should make you question what the hell is happening. And maybe we shouldn't be standing any of these dumbass billionaires because they're literally gaining more power while we're losing everything. And like food is becoming a scarcity. Now, this Benjamin guy had a great thread, and you guys should check out his thread. But he also talked about in his thread the 27 million chickens and turkeys and counting that are being called because of bird flu. And I'm telling you, my mother couldn't get chicken because they were out. They were out of chicken in a lot of places. And this is how this all intersects is very suspect to me.
You want to hear something funny? You know how many reported incidences of a human catching a bird flu in the United States is recorded?
1.
0.
Oh.
0.
It was generous.
None. 0.
So, CNET put out this article. Bird flu epidemic has claimed at least 36 bald eagles. Sorry, I don't know why that's funny. Outbreaks of H5N1 have forced farmers to kill at least 27 million chickens and turkeys. Raptors and birds of prey are also succumbing to the virus. I feel bad for the bald eagle, but isn't that a little bit symbolic? Isn't it the American eagle?
Fam, I am not even making that comparison. I am. You can.
Sorry.
Eagle does not
I don't care about pissing off
the bald eagles.
The left or the right, Pasta. So I am going to make that comparison.
Okay. Thomas Jefferson wanted the bird to be a turkey.
The bird attacked Trump, and then the other bird pooped on Biden. Okay.
Wait. It was Thomas Jefferson wanted the dove to be the bird. Ben Franklin wanted it to be the turkey. John Adams wanted it to be the eagle, and John Adams won.
Yeah, well, there's so many ways you could go with that. The U.S. pretends to be a dove when it's an eagle, but really now it's turning into a turkey, fam.
The eagle, you know how
nobody respects it.
I don't know if that's really true. That was just in the movie 1776 that that did this whole scene where Thomas Jefferson, John Adams and Ben Franklin are trying to discuss what the national bird should be. So yeah, it could be just part of the musical. It could be real life. And by the way, I did too, fam, as well. I also in the Rokfin chat, and I'm going to do it over in the YouTube chat too as well. I have a video from organic consumers on Rokfin talking about bird flu and the myths and everything behind it, guys. Go ahead and check out this video if you get a chance. I tagged it in both our chats. And it will talk about H1N1 and H5N1, excuse me, and the myths and everything behind it. So that's how I knew the answer about 0. So check this out, guys. This is something, once again, fam, when you start talking about the coincidences of this stuff, what way to motivate or to get people to understand or to accept the propaganda or accept what's happening to them with, oh, there's a bird flu. We got to kill all these chickens.
So they're calling it a virulent bird flu epidemic that killed 27 million chickens that resulted in nearly 27 million chickens and turkeys being destroyed in 30 states and also killed dozens of bald eagles. First detected in the U.S. in January, H5N1 is a strain of highly pathogenic avian influenza, has been recorded across the Midwest, South, and East Coast. Weird, a lot of the areas where we had this whole situation with the food. At least 36 bald eagles have died as a result of contracting the virus since then, according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. A dozen have been brought to the University of Minnesota's Raptor Center over the past few weeks. Is this Jurassic Park? The Wall Street Journal reported the birds, which were suffering seizures and unable to stand, had to be euthanized. Red-tailed hawks, snow geese, horned owls, crows, and black vultures have also succumbed. The H5N1 is believed to have killed hundreds of cormorants and herons at Baker's Lake Forest Preserve, which is a bird watching haven. So no human has tested positive in the U.S., but the economic toil could be major. The epidemic is also fueling a surge in egg and chicken prices. The first U.S. epidemic in 2015 cost the poultry industry more than $1.5 billion and caused egg prices to nearly double. So that's what's happening with that. And just put that in, just have it right here because everything is happening at once. And I just thought this meme was funny. Mysterious wave of recent food factory fires. The news. Amber Heard's poop.
By the way, it's from the Gillette commercial. Remember, and that dude was teaching that how to act. Of course, I remember that. Fam, they got this thing called the Green New Deal. You hear about the Green New Deal? They want to put all these windmills up. They look terrible. It's like an eyesore. And they kill the bald eagles. We don't want to kill the bald eagles because they're American. No.
Fam, I'm going to have a bald eagle for lunch.
This is a bald eagle burger from Fam.
Kidding.
Fam.
It's not its fault that it represents a symbol of imperialism. Sorry, bald eagle.